Hello my loves, and a warm welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time seeing this face and coming across this channel, my name is Rachel and I'd love for you to stick around by subscribing. And if you are returning, thank you so much for the love and support. I really appreciate it. So in today's video, we're talking all things dating. What do you ask that man that you're interested in, that is trying to court you as a Christian woman? What are some things you just don't want to not ask and then have regrets later? Courting is that one time that you get to really ask important questions, so that if you do decide to go into this relationship, this marriage, you go in with your eyes open and you go in with information that you need. And I think sometimes we neglect certain questions because we're fearful of the answer we might get, or we're already too invested in the relationship. But I just want to encourage you that before you get your emotions involved, please ask these questions first, just so that you guard your heart and you don't get heartbroken when it could be prevented. So these questions are in no particular order, but I do hope that they help you when you are in this phase of dating, in this phase of courting. And before we get started, I just feel it in my heart to just say that these questions are for courting with purpose. We're not talking about worldly dating. That is a completely different thing. We are talking about dating with purpose. So you're asking these questions to the man, to the woman that you're interested in, and not just some guy who just is trying to waste your time. The first question is, what is your relationship like with your family? What are the relationship dynamics looking like? And this is an important question because it lets you in to know if this is a mama's boy, first of all, and if he is, that's something you might have to work on or talk about. But also you get to know whether this person comes from a broken family. What does that mean for them? How do they see relationships? How do they see marriages? How do they see family? So that's going to give you a very big insight also into how big is the family. Do you want to get into a family that's that big? Are they close? Are they not close? So those are questions that really get you thinking about where this person is coming from, the relationship dynamics. If you do decide to say I do, what would that look like for you? This is the question that I asked my husband from the beginning, because for me, I knew that I wanted a man who comes from a good family, not a perfect family by any means, but a good family where there are some Christian values. It was important for me that my husband is close with his family, because remember, you're not just marrying the man, you're marrying into the family as well. When I married my husband, I married the family. They're so kind, they're so sweet. They check up on me a lot. His siblings are like so sweet to me. So those are important things, because I remember in past relationships, I didn't have the best relationship with like the guy's mom, and she was super jealous. She just didn't want to let go of her son. So that causes a little bit of, tension in the relationship. Talk less of marriage. So those are questions that you definitely don't want to overlook. The next question is, do you have any health concerns I should be aware of or concerned about? Because sometimes we get into marriages, we get into relationships without getting the full picture of the person. And for example, let's say that the person cannot have children, or the person has a certain illness they've been dealing with for a few years or a few months or a few weeks. These are things that you should be aware of from the beginning. So it's something to ask, and at least you know that if the person is being untruthful, this is something that you asked from the beginning and you just didn't get the right answer. And health is such an important thing that you don't want to overlook, because it's going to change a lot of things in your marriage, whether that means you having to take care of this person so early on. What will that look like? So that's a question that you definitely want to ask. The next question is, do you find sex important? And I know for a lot of us women, we think men love sex, and so we're gonna just be doing it whenever I want to do it or whenever we can. Some men are not that into sex. Some men don't find it that important. These are questions to ask. Do you find sex important? How do you define intimacy? Do you find it important for the woman to initiate more? Or how do you see things in the bedroom? This is not to get ungodly and start talking about, certain deeper things for marriage, no. But it's important that you're aware of the expectations that he has, and you're aware of the expectation you have of your partner as well, because you just assuming that he wants to have sex all the time might not be the case. Sometimes people have very low sex drive. Does that matter to you? So those are questions that you want to ask each other, just so that when you do get to that point where you can enjoy each other and be more intimate, you guys are starting on a clean slate, on a fresh page, and you guys are aware of each other's expectations. The next question, since we're speaking about sex, do you want children? How many children do you want? It's so funny because you hear so many stories of people who have gotten married and then they only realize later on in the marriage that this person doesn't want children anymore. Or they were in the dating stage, courting stage, they asked this question, the person said, yes, I want kids, and they decided to change their mind later. Or they said that they don't want to have kids, but you feel that you can kind of change them, you can make them change their mind. That's a big mistake, and that's something that will rock any marriage if you decide to get into it when the person clearly said they don't want kids and you've always wanted kids, it's been a dream of yours, and they just don't want it. Because there'll be a lot of frustrations, a lot of just regrets in a marriage that you could have definitely avoided if you spoke about it before getting into the I do. So next would be a financial question. What do you think about spending? How do you spend your money? What do you think about debt? Monthly budgets? How do you want us to combine our income? Do you want us to combine our income? What would that look like in a marriage for the both of you? Because I know when I got married with my husband, that was something we spoke about during our courting. How do you want to handle finances? I mean, he comes from a family, or he's seen his dad and his mom literally combine everything. When they said I do, they became one, and literally everything else followed as well. So that was something that was almost a non-negotiable for him. He really wanted to make sure that we combine our finances together, that we are working toward one common goal, and that we united with our finances. But you get certain situations or certain people that prefer to just split everything 50-50. Would that be something that you'd be happy with? Or is this person into spending a lot? Do they have a lot of credit card debts? Do they have a lot of student loans, car payments? Those are things that you might have to now start involving yourself in. And if it's something that you're not comfortable with, or the debt is looking a bit too much, is this going to affect your marriage negatively? Because you guys have to remember that love is great, but finances plays a huge role as well. And it's not something that you just want to say, oh well, yeah, I mean, I love him, we're gonna sort it out. You guys need to have a plan. And it's not to say that you need to enter a marriage without any debt, but it's important that the person discloses them and has a plan on how they kind of want to pay it off. Will that involve your finances as well? So those are questions to ask. And also spending, right? Are you into spending? Is he not into spending? What do you want to spend money on? Is it more of luxury? Is it more of travel? More investments? What does that look like for you and your family? So that's something to ask. Oh, I love this question. So how do you handle disagreements? And honestly, this question is a very big one. Most times a person will give you a very glamorized, rosy answer like, oh, I just like to just go into my own little spot and really think about things and then come back to you. Saying that is easy, but when you're actually in a disagreement, you might get a different response. So it's always good to sort of not test your person that you're dating, no, but maybe it's important that before you say I do, you need to see the person when they're heated, when they're upset, when you guys have a big disagreement. How do they react to those things? Do they get aggressive? Do they maybe just walk off? Do they just kind of keep to themselves and they don't want to talk to you for a few days? Those are important red flags to think about. Or does the person come to you and talk about things and really share their emotions with you? What made them upset? How you guys can avoid this in the future? That's a big green flag, and those are things that they make a very big difference. Because getting married, you will have disagreements, you will have days where the person is just getting on your last nerve. How do you guys deal with those type of situations? This next question, you guys, is a big one. Don't forget to ask this. Okay, ask this. This should be actually one of your top questions. What is your opinion about gender roles in marriage? So what does a Christian woman do in a marriage? What does a man do? Does he provide? The woman stays home? Because if you're a career-driven woman and he wants you to stay home, that might be a bit of a situation, right? Or if he wants you to work and you might want to stay home for a few years, a few months after having kids, that might cause a bit of unhappiness. So these are questions to ask, because when you do get into a marriage, then you guys are both on the same page. If you're a woman who's a go-getter, who wants to get things done, who wants to provide for the family as well, and you have a man that is a bit bit more traditional in the sense that he wants to provide for the family only, it might cause a sticky situation. So that's something you need to ask. And this is not just in terms of finances or family, it's also just everyday life. Do you expect me to cook every day? Do you expect me to clean the house? How do you want me to handle things when it comes to planning our future? Do you want to plan everything? Do you see submission important in the sense that I need to say yes to everything you're doing and what you're saying? Or is this like more of a joint effort, a united effort? How does that look like? Because when I was courting my husband, and this is an important question that we spoke about, because I asked him, what does a Christian husband look like to you? And his answers were very traditional because he's a more traditional man. So I knew that, okay, I'm dealing with a man that kind of also is in line with my values, because I'm also more of a traditional woman where I definitely want to take care of the home. I do want to take care of him. And so we didn't clash. So let's talk about church. What is the person's involvement at church? Do they find church attendance important? Going to church every Sunday, maybe going for Bible study? Does this person find doing these things important? Because if you meet a man that is a Christian but does not find going to church important, he does not find community important, and maybe you do you guys see how this can be an issue almost every Sunday, where you want to go to church, you want your husband to come with you, to just avoid people asking where is your husband and he's nowhere to be found. You want to be led spiritually, but this person just is okay with watching a YouTube sermon, or is okay with just reading his Bible on a Sunday morning and then going about his day. Maybe he wants to go out and have lunch and you're at church. So these are questions, to ask, especially if you also find it important to be involved in ministry, to serve at your church, and this person doesn't find it important. How will that look like with kids, for example? Will you be going to church with them, or will you kind of influence them to stay home with him? Ask this question, it's important. So next is, why did your last relationship end? See what he says, because that will say a lot of things. A man that will not take accountability, a man that will put all the blame on the woman, it's already a red flag, because I feel that you might both have contributed. Not even you might, you both did contribute to the end of the relationship. Whether you did more or she did less, or you did less, she did more, whatever the case is, you both contribute to the ending of a relationship. But also it lets you know what the issue might have been, in the sense that, was he controlling? Was she just not happy with the way he spent money? Was he always cheating? What were the reasons for the ending of the relationship? So another important question to ask is, what do you think of celibacy? Now, this is a question that a lot of people assume because someone is a Christian that they will say, yes, I'm celibate. But you will be very shocked in these dating streets to find out that there are some men, some women that are okay with doing the do before marriage. We've all been there, we've suffered this sin, but I still think that it's important that you don't neglect asking this question, especially if you're someone that takes celibacy and sexual purity as something important, because it is. You also don't want to be pressured into having sex with this person because celibacy is not something that they find important. You also don't want to feel that you're forcing the person to be celibate for your sake and not because God has commanded this. And it's important to also ask this question because it lets you know about the discipline of the person. If someone can discipline themselves to not have sex, it says a lot about their spiritual maturity as a man. It also says a lot about the respect that he has for you and for God. And if somebody cannot wait and is like, you know what, I can do everything else, but I just can't wait because I need to have sex. What about when you do decide to get married to this man and you can't have sex for 6 weeks after giving birth, or you can't have sex for a while because you're not feeling well? Will he then have to go out and get some action because he can't wait? Another question to ask is, what is your love language? How do you want to be loved? Are you more of a words of an affirmation kind of guy? Are you more of a receiving gifts kind of guy? Because that just lets you know how the person wants to be loved, what makes the person feel loved. My husband told me his love language, and since then I've been using it to my advantage. I know his love language, so I'm like, when I need something from you, when I want you to be happy, when I want you to feel loved, I'm gonna do this. And this is an everyday thing. Those are just small things that you can incorporate even in your courting and leading up to your marriage, because you know exactly how this man wants to be loved. So next question is, what are your biblical gifts? If this person is spiritually mature, they will be able to give you an answer because they have probably dived deep into it and they've found out what their calling is, what their purpose is. And I think for a man, it's really important that this question is asked to him, especially if he goes to church and he's serving in ministry and at the church, because then it lets you know how you will be led. And this question also is more of an action question. So it might not be that you ask him, hey, what are your biblical gifts? But maybe go to his church and see what he does. So for example, if he's in the kids' church, then you know that he's a teacher, you know that he's a leader in that sense. So that already gives you an example. Or maybe he does evangelism and that's his calling and that's something that is his gift, then you already sort of know that. So that's a good way to kind of see him in action, because there's nothing more attractive than a man serving God, let's just be honest. So the next question is, what is your relationship with God like? And you should just pause right there and just let him talk. If you hear him like, oh yeah, but I think you have your answer. But if he responds in his own honest way as a man, it would tell you a lot. Because if this man shares his struggles, if this man is able to open up about some of the weaknesses that he has, if he's able to share his journey with God, where he started, where he's going, whew, yes, that's what you need, that vulnerability, and knowing that this man is in a good space with God, that this man is being led by God so he can lead me, that this man is not joking when it comes to God. How deep is his faith? How deep is his walk with God? Because if his relationship with God is still a bit rocky, how will he lead you? How will you be a great husband? Okay, so we have 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up this video. The next question is, what are your career goals? As a man who should provide, what are his goals? What does he want to achieve? What does he see himself doing in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years? Does he want to move to a different country? Does he want to stay in his job for a few years? Does he want to increase his salary, start his own business? But what does it look like? What will that sort of transition to maybe starting his own business or joining ministry, what would that look like for your marriage? Will it be a positive thing? Is it something that he's already working on? So asking about his career, asking about his ministry, if that's something that he has been called to, are important questions that you know what to expect before you get into anything. Because, you know, when you get married, it's a different story. You're no longer just on your own. You're no longer going to make decisions for yourself. Your husband is going to be leading you. So you want to make sure that you're led by a man that is really after God's heart, a man that is being led by God. And the last question that you need to ask this man is, what was your childhood like? What did it look like? Did you have a father? Did you have a mother? Did your father leave halfway into your childhood? You know, what did it look like? Was it rocky? Did your mom perhaps always scold you? Did your mom kind of not show affection? Did your dad not show affection? Because this question will let you know a few things. One, how does he receive love as a person? Does he find it difficult to be vulnerable? Does he find affection difficult? The second thing is, how does he see himself as a future father, a future husband? If his dad maybe was not there, that's not to say he'll be a terrible husband, but he has a lot of learning to do. He has a lot of healing to do by God's grace. So that's something to keep in mind. The third thing is, it's going to let you know whether this man is fully healed, whether he has a lot of trauma. Does this man have a lot of hurt that he has not let go of? Does this man have difficulty in trusting people, in loving someone? For example, if his dad was not in the picture, does he have an idea of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a father, what it means to be a husband? How will he love you? This question really gets deep because our childhood really translates into our adult life, and it's not something that you should overlook because it really affects how somebody is as an adult if they went through certain things as children. And also it lets you know how you can support this man better, because as a woman, as a wife, as a future wife, this is something that you can really support this man with in prayer. So for example, if he never got a lot of affection, if he never got a lot of words of affirmation, you can build him up. You can be that rock, you know, you can be that woman that can push him to the next level, because you are his helpmeet, and God can use you to really push this man to his next level, to his calling in life. So it's not to see it as a negative thing, but to see it as, how can I support this man moving forward? How can I support this man in marriage as a wife? So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and you found it helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, to comment, and to subscribe to my channel, and I will be happy to see you in my next video. Bye guys.